This is the Kitchen Sink WP Podcast, episode 600.
I program my home computer.
We have a server crash, oral floor error, page not found, links aren't working, system is crashing, system is crashing, system is crashing.
Your old HTML website, barely alive. We have the technology. We have WordPress. A new website, better than it was before. Better, stronger, faster. Why, hello there, everybody. This is Adam Silver, the host of the Kitchen Sink WP podcast. Thanks for being here. Episode 600. Yeah, that's crazy. All right. Moving on to upcoming events. We have 3 next week. Actually, the day this episode drops is WordCampuS. It's August 26th through 29th. I will be there. I'm there now, actually, I'm en route when this episode comes out. I'm flying there on Monday. So yeah, if you're in Portland, Oregon, by all means, come say hi. And if it's your first WordCamp, also let me know because I want to interview you possibly for the follow-up. So that'd be kind of cool. Also this week, WordCamp Lira, which is in Uganda, August 30th, and WordCamp Bengaluru, Sunday, August 31st. So if you're in those other parts of the world, you should go. I will not be at those other 2 because I'll be at US, and then I'm going to Southern California to see the family, see my parents and my daughter, and etc. So, all right, that's the upcoming events. Moving on, segment 1 in the news. Only one thing right now at the moment I want to share was PatchStack created a tooling to test how well websites are protected from application level vulnerabilities within different hosting environments. So pretty cool. It's not, I don't think it's public. It's for hosting companies. So if you are a hosting company, reach out to PatchStack and see about using it to see how well you guys are protected from that issue at hand. So pretty cool there. Is that it in the news? Yeah, that's it in the news. All right, moving on. Segment 2. Episode 600. It's a special episode. So I actually reached out to a dear old friend of mine. I have an interview this week with the one and only Adam Warner, and take a listen to that. We had a great discussion. Listen here, and then when we come back, I'll do the tip and tool of the week. Here is Mr. Adam Warner. Today, I am joined by Adam Warner, who's been shaping the WordPress and marketing space for over 2 decades. He is now leading field marketing at GoDaddy, bringing equal parts strategy, empathy, and curiosity to the work. Mr. Adam Warner, it's great to have you here. Welcome to the Kitchen Sink WP podcast.
Thanks, Adam. It's great to be here again.
Again?
Sort of. I was a fly on the wall one time.
Oh, this is true. That was a different podcast. We'll get to that.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Sorry about that.
So, as I always start interviews with, on how I might know the guest. And in this case, we have met in person many times. We've known each other for a long time, but I'm not sure when we first met, but I do recall sleeping in the same room as you, which was Pressnomics 5, is where you were the fly on the wall when I recorded with Kyle Maurer. Anyway, do you know when we first met? Because I don't.
No, I don't recall the exact moment. I do have a memory of, and I don't even know what the location was. We were at a WordPress event, a WordCamp in some city. It was a city-based event. And I recall riding in the middle of the back seat of your minivan, and someone else was in the front. And I believe we were going from the venue. No, we were going, I believe, from the hotel to the after party or pre speaker sponsored dinner at a bird sanctuary. Does that ring a bell?
Oh, yes. That would have been WordCamp Birmingham.
Yes. WordCamp Birmingham.
Yes.
That was it.
Wow. That was my minivan.
Yeah. I recall going up some windy roads to
get
to the sanctuary because it was,
otherwise, if
it should be in the middle of the woods.
That was Birmingham. Yeah. Okay. But we met before that, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, we did, because we also met at WordCamp San Diego. We worked at Phoenix because we were... I was just going to say it may have been a WordCamp Phoenix. That was one of... I think it was the second WordCamp I ever went to. Yeah, but you weren't at GoDaddy then? You were SiteLock.
No, I wasn't even SiteLock then. I was Adam... using the WordPress software guy.
Okay, so we'll get to that in a second then. Hold on. So the first question I have for you is, for those who don't know you, remind us how you got here. How did you get into the world we know as WordPress?
Well, I'll try and keep it short. Growing up, I was the youngest of three. I had a proclivity for art. I used to draw a cartoon all of the time. That led me to going into an advertising design program after high school into a college with that program. This was 1990, so a little blast from the past. And to set some context, we had one class with one computer. It was a little Mac, and our assignment for the entire semester was to create and colorize and edit a stamp using the computer graphics software.
Mac Paint.
It may very well have been. Everything else in my schooling was all analog. So we were drawing illustrations, we were creating product, packaging, that kind of thing. After finishing through that program, I thought I was going to go to New York City and work in some kind of a advertising agency in the pit. The show, well, I can't remember the name. There was a show about that very thing at the time. After school, went straight to work in a furniture factory, worked my way up into being a team lead, shift supervisor, etc. And then at the same time doing pen and ink portraits and artwork for individuals, and had a realization after a few years that I didn't want to spend my entire life in the same building for 30 years with two 15-minute breaks and a 20-minute lunch.
Right.
Knowing that I had this passion. At the same time, we're getting into the mid to late 90s, where internet access was a little more accessible. So I started building web pages using Front Page, GeoCities, all of the classic
MySpace.
MySpace, yeah. And with that, learned HTML and CSS eventually, and then started building little sites, little hobby sites for myself and others. Fast forward to 2004, I was working customer service for an audiobook publisher, and still doing web stuff on the side, creating little e-commerce stores. I had a drop ship pet supply store, et cetera, et cetera. And I would be so excited when I was able to edit something and change it. And I would run down and tell my wife, and she'd go like, yeah, you changed it from red to green. That really cool. And so I started finding open source software solutions. Fast forward to finding WordPress. When I was in advertising design school, my professor gave me a book called Right Brain, Left Brain.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was having trouble. You're familiar with that one? It's a good one. I was having trouble getting the concepts in my head out into something tangible. When I found WordPress, that was the key for me. My analytical side would understand the software, how it was built, how to, at that time, edit the hacks.php file, I believe it was, to add different functionality or remove, whatever. But I could also point and click and write the title of a web page and start writing some content and hit publish. And that was the visual and creative side. So that's how I found WordPress. And from 2004 on, it really has been a love affair. I've built a lot of personal projects. I got into client work. I co-founded a plugin company eventually as I saw the WordPress ecosystem grow into real businesses with companies like iThemes and others at the time, kind of blazing the way. And I knew I wanted to do that, so I got into the plugin business. And then from there, really leaned into the community and started attending WordCamps, paying attention to the online communities. And from there, that transitioned into brand work in a couple of different ways.
So from getting into WordPress, I'm curious, I'm always fascinated on how much time between finding WordPress and attending your first WordCamp was there for you, or knowing that there was a community?
Knowing that there was a community was pretty fast because as soon as I went through the famous 5-minute install
Right.
And got familiar enough, I would then go to the forums, the WordPress.org forums,
Oh, okay.
and start asking questions and sharing what I was learning along the way. Started creating tutorial sites to help others, created a bit of a following with a couple of different things there. But it was really probably, I think, if I remember correctly, it was either 2011 or 2012 when I went to my first WordCamp. I had known that these events were kind of spinning up, and that's when I really leaned in.
Nice. And what was that first WordCamp? Was it local to you?
It was either WordCamp Miami, which I spoke at, and explained the difference between WordPress.com and WordPress.org.
I still get that question to this day.
Yeah, there's a long history of confusion there, and then WordCamp Phoenix. And when I went to WordCamp Phoenix, I was working for that audiobook publisher at the time. I was working customer service, phone and website sales, but I had been successful in advocating for myself to build mini author websites for marketing using WordPress. So I moved into the IT department. And that was also the first time a company ever paid for any travel or accommodation for me to go to a conference. And when I got there, the first night, there's a gathering. I don't know if it was I don't think it was an official speaker sponsored dinner or anything like that, but I started seeing people and that I would recognize from their avatars on WordPress.org. And then I would get the names and I go, oh my gosh, that's you and you and you. And it was my version of being starstruck.
I was going to ask, were you ever fanboyed against anybody from somebody's perspective?
I was absolutely running around like a fanboy at that conference. But once you talk to people, you just realize we're all people.
Right.
We're all interested in the same thing. But it was primarily a group of people who were contributing to the software and to the community. And I felt like I was a part of that at that point.
So I have a question on that. So you obviously worked at the audio company, but then did you? What happened from there? Because I know you also were the co-founder and the lead handshaker, if you will, of Foo Plugins.
Yes, it's funny you slipped and said Audible because that company was called Brilliance Audio.
Okay,
and the online sales website was called Audio Bookstand, and then this transitions into my answer. In 2008, that company was acquired by Amazon.
Interesting.
Which then connected to their Audible acquisition or business. So I became an Amazon employee for a little while. But at the time,
I don't think I knew that.
Pardon?
I don't think I even knew that.
Yeah. It was short-lived.
Okay.
But they did an incredible thing. They interviewed every single employee in the company, and then they changed the dress code because at that point I had to wear slacks and a blazer and a tie to go sit in a cubicle and only see my coworkers every day. So they relaxed to, jeans, t-shirts, whatever. But they also did a pay leveling exercise because this was in a location that was didn't have high salaries and things. So I received stock options and a raise, and I was about a year away from the stocks vesting. And at that point, that was my nest egg to try to purchase a home and whatnot. But at the time, my wife had moved from her home in Florida to Michigan, where this was, and it had been several years, and she was ready to get back to Florida. Like we had to figure this out. And because I was building websites and because I was using WordPress, my cousin, who were best friends, was working for a company, an HVAC company in Sarasota, Florida. And they had an old HTML static website. It's no e-commerce or anything like that, but it had residential, commercial product listings, all of those things. Long story short, I accepted that role and got us to Florida, having to make the decision to give up my stocks because they weren't vested yet.
Wow.
But it was one of the best moves I've ever made.
Well, that's good to
because
hear.
then
Yeah.
I was in WordPress all day, every day, even more than I was
Wow.
before.
Yeah. So you and
that
Jeff
was in
Bezos,
2008.
you guys aren't besties anymore, you and Jeff?
No, I opted out of Blue Origin long ago.
Right. So what's your connection now still? I know you're at GoDaddy, but do you still own and run Foo plugin?
No. So during that time with this HVAC company, I had used WordPress multi-site, which if listeners should know. If they don't know, it used to be a separate code base to standard WordPress. Now it's built in. You just have to turn on the functionality. And what it allows you is to create hundreds, thousands of WordPress sites under a single install. So I use that for separating this residential, commercial. It was also multi-language. We had English, and then we had French, and then we had Quebec French.
Wow.
So it was a bear. Looking back, it was very hacked together, but it served the purpose.
Right.
And that was 2008 through 2012. Around 2011, I had really been paying attention to this ecosystem that was cropping up in WordPress, this product ecosystem, and I got into information products. So I wrote a book called The WordPress Multi-Site Manual or similar. I think it's still on Amazon. Don't buy it. It's extremely outdated, but it's still there, I think. And other things. And within that ecosystem, I was following along with people who were creating plugins and selling them outside of the .org repo, outside of full-on plugin businesses. And I had some ideas for plugins, but I'm not a developer in that sense.
Right.
At the same time, I was working with a client and building a Gravity Forms extension for them. I needed help. On the Gravity Forms forum, there was a guy named Brad who was helping me. That turns out to be Brad Vincent, who then we co-founded Foo Plugins together because I shared my ideas. He shared some stuff he had already built, and then one that hadn't, but that matched closely what my idea was. And we were like, okay, let's do this together. So that went on from 2012 until about 2016-17, when I had to take myself out of that business because I had then started working for a brand in the WordPress ecosystem.
And what was that first brand?
That was a company called SiteLock.
Okay.
And just moving back one moment, that HVAC company and that experimentation with Brad on selling some products. The first thing we sold was pretty successful in terms of a first product release, and it was about 30 days before my first son was born in 2012 where that company laid me off. I had the option to go to Sweden or Kansas, but both places were in the middle of nowhere in those locations, and having a first child on the way. So I went all in with the Foo Plugins business. And then as the years went on, I started to see people adopt the term WordPress evangelist,
right,
and work for brands. And I thought, I'm pretty well positioned for that. Seems like a fun job. So I applied to a few places, and of course there wasn't very many.
Right.
Never heard anything. And so I just kept slugging along with my side projects with the plugin business. And one of my side projects, again, was a kind of a WordPress informational tutorial site. A contact came through there asking for a phone call, a recruiter, telling me about this company named SiteLock, who was looking for a person with WordPress experience and depth of knowledge for community work. And that was one of the companies I had applied to months earlier.
Funny.
And so we got on a phone call, I accepted the role, and I started about 15 days later.
Do you recall our conversation about SiteLock? Probably don't.
No.
So you were on the East Coast, you were in Florida. I was on the West Coast still, in California. I was trying to do similar. I mean, I was doing the podcast and, this and that. And it's been, by the way, if you forget, this is episode 600, by the way, that you are on.
600. Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you. And I had talked to a few companies as well because I was doing my side hustle, but financially the agency wasn't where it is at the moment. And, it hadn't quite nearly come to a peak, but I was reaching out to kind of do some evangelism work. And I talked to two hosts, SiteGround and InMotion. Still around. And the only world company that had an evangelist at that moment was GoDaddy with Mendel.
It was GoDaddy with Mendel, and also I think previous to Mendel, Suzette Frank.
Oh, right.
With DreamHost.
Those
were my those were my two examples. And at the time too, first of all, it seems like we've led somewhat parallel journeys with WordPress and are interested and capable of doing similar things, right? For brands. I recall seeing Mendel and GoDaddy at a couple of WordCamps I was able to go to, and boy, did he take the brunt of, all the brand hate at that point, right? But what he did is he took that feedback back to the company. It inspired change in their products. It gave them visibility into actual customer feedback and et cetera, et cetera. So that's how that happened.
Yeah, but I was gonna say, at one point when I was still looking, SiteGround and InMotion couldn't justify, in those early days, 2010, 11, 12, to pay me what I kind of needed, at least full time, to travel Thursday through Sunday. They just didn't have that. They didn't see that. They didn't see 10 years out, which is, 5 years ago, give or take. So, but then you reached out because you guys were looking for a West Coast person from SiteLock. And we talked, and I remember we had dinner with we had a really nice dinner in a Phoenix, somewhere in Phoenix that I was invited to. It was a SiteLock dinner. And you, me, some people, I think, what's his name? Scott was there. Scott DeLuzio and his wife were there. I remember that dinner well. I have photos of it, and we talked about it, but then something came up, budgets, it didn't happen. And then you end up leaving not too long after that.
Yes. And I don't want to drag this on for your listeners, but I completely forgot about two things. Yeah. One was, as I was putting out those resumes and things, I did get an interview with Envato.
Oh, right.
At the time. If people recall Envato and Code Canyon and Theme Forest, they were looking for a brand rep.
Right.
And I went through a series of 3 interviews, the third interview ending with me giving a presentation to leadership. And I completely nosedived.
Oh no!
William Bay, who is a WordPress community member on the West Coast, he also at the same time was interviewing for the same job. We actually talked during the interview process and stuff. Anyway, I completely nosedived that. I knew right away I was never going to have contact with them again. I was wearing a blazer. I was in my garage in Florida in the summer. I was uncomfortable, sweaty, just nervous like you wouldn't believe. So after that, I thought, well, I guess that's my only opportunity. And then, of course, the SiteLock opportunity came along.
Gotcha. Interesting. Yeah, I think actually another friend went to Envato at one point, James Giroux.
Yes.
He went he was there at one point.
He was there a long time.
Funny thing, I was looking back at some old emails and stuff, reaching out to companies to sponsor or to do some giveaways for when I hit like 5 years, whatever it was on the podcast. And he was the contact I had to see if he wanted to donate something to a raffle kind of thing, to prizes for episode, whatever, like 200 or whatever it was. I'm like, oh, and then he and I became friends. I didn't know him then. I didn't realize who it was until he and I went through the trial for WP Tavern last year. We've been around a long time, you and I. So,
Yeah. One more side note, if I may.
Of course.
You mentioned SiteGround. That was another company that I had reached out to and pitched myself. Because they had been attending WordCamps in the U.S., but they were all coming from Bulgaria every single time. Sophia. And my pitch was, why don't you hire me and I'll cover the U.S.
We should have started a company, Adam Co. And just could have had 2 Adams on each coast,
Hey, there's still an opportunity.
There
for
is.
That.
We will talk
Adam
about this
Squared,
after the show.
Your brand reps.
Yes, exactly. So I'm curious. But then you go from SiteLock, you leave. Where did you end up from there? SiteLock to Envato.
No.
Oh, Envato
so
to
the
SiteLock.
Envato interview was first. The SiteGround pitch was first. Then I got SiteLock, and then I was happy with SiteLock. I changed from a stay-at-home dad now with 2 toddlers.
Right.
Because my second son was born in 2014, so this is 2016. He was 2. My oldest was 4. I went from being stay-at-home dad, software company, co-founder, to road warrior.
Yeah, that's right.
24 conference trips in the first year, 30 in the second, 26 in the third, and what a change, right?
Yeah.
And obviously that first year affected my ability to do anything constructive with food plugins, so backed out of that. And I was happy with SiteLock. I was able to hire one more person at the time, but then it was WordCamp New York. I was contacted by someone at GoDaddy that said, are you going to be there? And yes, of course, we were both sponsors. I think I was speaking at that one too. And we had dinner the night before, and that person indicated that GoDaddy had an opening for this role, which then I took. I was very suspicious. I asked a lot of questions to this new leader who was at that point starting to build the GoDaddy Pro brand. And I said, if I'm going to represent you, I need to be assured that, the company is doing the right things for that space and for those products. And I was assured. And in November, it'll be 7 years.
Wow. I remember when you made that transition. I remember thinking it was impressive because because you bounce, in a sense, there's some people in the space early days who bounced a bit more than you would like to see people bouncing, or getting laid off or not working out, not ideal situations. And I knew your situation because of that. It's a stress. I remember talking to you once. You're like, your kids were little, younger than mine, but we're the same age, give or take a year. But my kids are older, so it's a little different situation, but I was traveling out of pocket. Until recently, I was paying my own way, but my wife and I made that decision to invest time and money into the community, into the business, etc. But I remember you going to GoDaddy, I'm like, wow, that's a big step.
Well, it was a huge step into the unknown for multiple reasons.
Yeah.
One was the largest company I had worked for, aside from the Amazon acquisition, was this HVAC company, which had offices in Sweden and Kansas and Florida.
The hotbed of HVAC,
Yeah, and then the SiteLock experience, that was an even larger company, but it wasn't very quote unquote corporate-y. It wasn't a publicly traded company or anything either. And so stepping into GoDaddy with, at the time, I think it was 7,000 plus employees globally, and navigating that business structure in and of itself, not to mention all of the teams in the organization that I had to follow as my role of a field marketing person and director, is to translate the product messaging to a very specific audience and bring feedback and all of the other things involved. So what I found myself doing was being in 1 million Slack channels and 1 million meetings just to stay up to date on what's coming, what just got released, all of those things. Through the years, I've been able to build a team. The team has been reduced and then built up again in this space. But I found a way to try and streamline, that, what do you call it? That information intake.
Right.
I don't think I'm doing a great job of it, but I've made some progress.
Yeah.
I think
you're doing pretty good at it from afar.
Oh, well, thanks.
Of course.
I appreciate that.
So, and on that, I wanted to then move into the next question. I want to be respectful of time here for both yours and the listeners. But so I'm curious, at this point, you're 7 years there at GoDaddy. You've been in the space just as long as me, just about 20 years or so, and plus in tech in general. If someone were to ask you right now about getting into WordPress, in either as a developer or designer, or in your case, management, what advice would you give?
Well, there are so many answers to that question,
Of course.
and it depends in many ways on what your skill set is, what your interest is, what your passion is. So leaving all of that aside, the first thing that I always recommend, especially I've had interns on my team, I've had people that are kind of marketing people that were brand new to the WordPress software, the ecosystem, everything else. My advice always is get involved, contribute, immerse yourself in that community in any way you can, whether it's online, at events, both is the preferred. Make those one-on-one connections and relationships with people, listen, learn, share where you're at. Because I think that's the only way to understand how complex and or how simple the WordPress software and the WordPress community ecosystem can be, right? Depending on your focus. There's so much. WordPress is so extensible, 60,000 plus plugins in the repo, standard themes, now block themes and theme companies, and not to mention the historical significance of a lot of the things that we've talked about, that
Right.
depth of knowledge that helps you kind of navigate and look for opportunities. So that is my first piece of advice. Get involved. Start contributing to the project.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's a solid approach, because you're right. There are way too many things. If you're a developer, what do you want to be, front end, back end? If you're design, again, is it UX, UI? Is it, is it theme building? You don't know. The management, I mean, that's a whole separate altogether, getting into management.
Well, and if you're none of those things, how do I contribute to the program?
Right.
I mean, the project.
Right.
But there are ways to do it. You
Yeah.
show up. There's many,
Meetups.
many different ways.
Yeah,
to
there's
contribute.
WordCamps, there's meetups, I mean, that's the thing. I remember I found about WordPress in 2009 when I started. Didn't go to my first camp until I think 2 or 3 years. I didn't know they existed. It was weird because, and there's always that theory, I don't know if it's a theory or not, it might be true, where most people who use WordPress is 44% market share. Most people who use it don't know anything about the community. There's no way they could, and there's no WordCamp that could have all those people attend. So it's a small percentage of the 43% who are like you and I, and who are so passionate, and go through the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows of said community, because it's not perfect by any stretch. Overall, I think it's pretty good. I'm still a fan.
Yeah, I mean, it's when you think about open source in general,
Right.
and communities in general, they're always organic and
Right.
ever growing and ever changing. And I use this term not to sound divisive, but one of the words I use is the inner circle of WordPress, right? So, and by inner circle, that's what I mean. The people who pay attention to the project, who contribute to it, who participate in the community, whether they're learning or sharing, etc. But you're right. There is a huge portion of WordPress users that know nothing.
Right. It's a tool. It's a business tool, and that's it.
Exactly.
Right.
Right.
And that's fine.
That's great.
And I knew that I realized that early on. I attended my first WordCamp, WordCampuS. I met Brandon, Dove, and Jeff Zinn, Pixel Jar. And it was weird because I had never met. I mean, these guys were tall like me, and I was like, but right off the bat, I found my people. But at the time, I was desperate for work, and I think that's a problem. I didn't realize that this wasn't business to business. It was person to person. You had to build trust in community to get referrals, to get that connection on all of that. But once I realized that, and it took me about 3 to 6 months, maybe 3 to 4 months, everything changed. So, and I wasn't desperate anymore. And then stuff kind of just started happening, and I was asked to I helped run a meetup. I then, worked with the WordCamp LA team, and I led that. Yeah. But it just takes time. It's that personal connection that is not B2B.
You immersed yourself.
I did.
The community and the project, and just to touch on that one-to-one and that building trust, it is the most important thing to unlock opportunities for yourself,
Right.
for your business, or for the businesses that you represent or work for.
Right.
I've had relationships that I've created over a number of years, seen, like you and I, seen each other at multiple events, and eventually translate into partnerships or acquisitions,
Right.
those things. And those maybe would have happened regardless, but because there was that level of trust and ability to advocate both ways, I think that's something that is like a long-term strategy that I think a lot of people don't have patience for
Right.
or realize.
Right.
I have a deck that I created years ago talking about this topic to share with when we have new leaders or new team members come in. I say, this is what this is what we do, this is why we do it.
Smart.
And it's always starts with relationships and trust.
Yeah. Okay. All right. 2 more questions for you. First and foremost, the easy one. Well, I think it's easy. Your 3 favorite tools, or your least 3 favorite tools, or a combination of both that you use on a daily basis to kind of do what you do.
There are many.
Yeah, of course.
And there are many that aren't favorites, but then I have to use. So these aren't necessarily tools I use every day. Some of them are, some of them aren't. I'm a huge Slack fan. I use Slack every day, all day for multiple work streams, whether it's my day job or contributing to WordPress or in any number of Slack instances that this community or other groups gather in. So Slack would be an easy answer. ScreenFlow.
Oh.
For Mac, it's a screencasting software. I bought into years ago when I was creating tutorials for WordPress. Huge fan of that software visually. Again, that right brain, left brain, visually, it's easy for me compared to other more advanced video editing. And then I think, and apologies if this sounds like an easy answer, but ChatGPT and other AIs, right? So I can tell you that professionally, the people I work for and with every day have been leaning into AI in many, many ways for the last couple of years. And that industry moves so fast and there's so much happening. It's really hard to keep track of. But ChatGPT has really helped me with my communication skills. It helps with brainstorming. I don't necessarily create content with it.
Right.
But I have this longstanding, I guess, issue that I am, and you can tell now because I'm talking a lot, I tend to be verbose, especially in my writing in the past, where I'll say something and then I have to back it up with all of this nuance and detail that really doesn't need to be there.
Yeah.
So I'll write something up or I'll actually voice into Word or any other system, and then ChatGPT or any other AI that I use to make things more concise.
Yeah, I use it a lot as well. I just recently started paying for it because I was always up against the limits. And our friend Marcus Burnett convinced me to finally take the plunge like a week ago. And I'm using it a lot. And for me, it helps me in asking the prompts. It actually, it shortcuts me with a blank page. So literally in me asking the question, I've almost written out what I want, but then it gives me more that I can then use and think differently about the question I'm asking or the information I'm looking for, which is fascinating to me. Yeah.
A recent example that I was just really happy with was we have a video to create for a project at work. And my prompt was, this person's going to do the video, knowing what you know about, and this is, by the way, this is our internal AI, which pulls from dozens of different AIs. So we're not putting, company information out there to be consumed. Using this person's tone of voice, using what you know about this brand, using all of these things, write a script for a 45 to 60 second video for this particular audience who are attending this thing for this particular reason.
Oh, yeah.
And man, if it didn't just come back with something really relevant, but it also took the next step of creating the camera delivery script, which separated the 4 different paragraphs of the script with suggestions for
visuals,
how to speak to the camera, when to use your hands, when to take breaks, all of that stuff. And without AI, I likely wouldn't have even thought about that.
Yeah. I mean, I've written enough scripts to kind of to know that I want a 2-column format, or I want voiceover, sound effects, visual effects. I know enough of that. Excuse me. But it just helps. It just expedites the process. And then some of it isn't perfect, so you still have to read it. You still need human interaction. Sure. I know. I mean, I review everything that I use it for, and then I add my own voice and tone to it. But it definitely expands that the ability to kind of iterate quickly as well.
Yeah, when I started using it, I got frustrated because I was like, well, why am I writing all these lengthy prompts if I can just write it out? But the more you use it, the better you get at prompting.
Okay, Slack, ScreenFlow, ChatGPT. Cool. Well, Mr. Warner, I do appreciate your time. Where can people reach you, find you online on the ethers if they wanted to reach out to you?
Well, Adam, I appreciate you having me and this opportunity to share a little bit about myself and WordPress itself. I'm trying to be less active everywhere. Okay. But I can be found on x.com at WPModder.
Yep.
That's WPMODDER. And that's because way back in the day, I signed up for Twitter because I was modifying WordPress.
Yeah, I remember seeing that the first time. I'm like, I get that. That's good.
I'm also on Facebook. I connect with people who are in the space who want advice or anything, but that would be the main.
Awesome.
Main
Last
spot.
question. You're not going to WordCampUS, are you?
No, unfortunately not.
This drops the week of WordCampUS 2025. I'll be there, but you won't be there.
Yes, it's the first WordCampUS I haven't attended since 2016.
This will be I missed last year, so the first one I missed ever. Yeah.
Yeah, it's strange to miss something like this after you've been to so many, but I'm wishing you and everyone in attendance, all the speakers, organizers, everyone, the best event that you can have.
Thanks. Thank you so much. All right. We will see you maybe when am I in Florida next? I don't know. I'll see you around, I'm sure.
Okay. Yeah, I'll be here.
Thanks, Adam. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Adam.
All right, and we're back. Thanks again, Mr. Adam Warner. I don't know why I keep saying Mr. Adam Warner. Thanks, Adam. Just made it because we're both named Adam. But yeah, Adam, he's a great guy. We've been friends for a long time, and we talked another 30 minutes after the show was recorded, and yeah, just one of the nicest people in the world. Not just WordPress, but in the world. Super, super nice. Just most caring. Just awesome. And we've had a lot of laughs. And I got him. If you ever meet him in person, or if you know him already, if you want to ask him about the airport story in the intercom, go ahead and ask him about that. It's kind of funny. He owes me one, which is not going to be good. I'm not looking forward to the payback on that. Anyway, so yeah, check him out online as well. WP Modder. So yeah. All right, moving on. Segment 3, tip and tool of the week. This week's tip, it's a plugin. I'm giving props and a shout out to Leslie Sim, who has a new plugin. It's a calendar plugin. It's called EventKoi.com. I'm checking it out as well. And the reason I'm sharing this is because it's timely. First and foremost, it's a lot of calendars. It's standard events, recurring event instances. A lot of features in this plugin. With unlimited calendars, you can add calendars and share calendars out of the box. No additional setup. It looks really cool. I have a copy of it. I'm testing it out as well. Right now, though, Leslie's having a lifetime deal promotion. So you get a lifetime license of 3, 10, or 50 sites, a permanent discount of 25% on all future products from her, access to a private Slack group, 2 years of support, 60-day money-back guarantee. It's like a commercial, but it's really impressive. It's really neat. So join the waiting list. The sale is running from the 25th of August, again, when this episode drops, through August 31st. If you use the code KitchensinkWP10, I think you get 10% off of the lifetime deal. So check it out. I'm looking at it myself. It's really neat. There's other calendar plugins out there that just not as great, in my opinion, with my experience. So eventkoi.com. It's eventkoi.com. And give Leslie some love over there and check it out. So, again, and by the way, I'm not an affiliate. I said no. I'd rather you guys get the 10% than me get anything. So KitchensinkWP 10 gets you, I think, 10% off of the lifetime deal pricing. So it's pretty cool. Yeah, it looks really neat. There's a video. She shows how it works. It's really kind of impressive. It's pretty darn cool. So check that out. All right. I'm going to wrap it up here. If you have any questions, go ahead, send it in via email, adam@kitchensinkwp.com, or use the SpeakPipe function on the website. If you want to support the show, you can. You can become a Patreon. You can buy me a coffee. If you want to sponsor the show for the next 600 episodes, you can do that too. Form on the website, fill it out, I'll get back to you. Thanks for listening. See you next week. Now go out and do some awesome things with WordPress. All right. Bye-bye, everybody.